All right, today we are tackling one of the most profound and honestly unsettling questions in all of psychology. What makes good people do truly evil things? We all like to think we're good, that we do the right thing when it counts. But what if that line we draw between good and evil is a lot less solid than we think?
So let me just ask you, straight up, really think about it. What would it take for you to intentionally harm another person? To be cruel, to cross a moral line you swore you would never ever cross? Now, most of us, our gut reaction is no way, never. But the research we're about to get into suggests the answer might be, well, a lot simpler and a lot scarier than that.
And that really gets to the heart of it, with this quote from psychologist Philip Zimbardo. He's arguing that this barrier, this solid wall we imagine separates us, the good guys, from them, the bad guys, it isn't a wall at all. It's more like a fog, and any one of us could wander through it if the circumstances are right.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we're going to tackle a really common myth. Then we'll dive into one of the most controversial experiments ever done. After that, we'll zoom out to see the bigger forces at play, and we'll actually wrap things up on a surprisingly hopeful note.
Okay, first things first, the bad apple myth. When something terrible happens, what's our go-to explanation? We look for a villain, right? We want to find that one bad apple, blame them, and call it a day. But what if that's just a convenient story that lets the rest of us off the hook?
So psychologists really see this in two ways. There's the dispositional view. That's our classic bad apple theory. It says evil comes from what's inside a person, their character flaws. But then there's the situational view. This one asks us to look at the bad barrel. Maybe the apple wasn't born rotten, maybe the barrel it was in was toxic. And Zimbardo's whole point is that we almost always blame the apple and completely ignore the barrel.
And absolutely nothing put this bad barrel theory to the test quite like Zimbardo's own infamous study. This brings us to the Stanford Prison Experiment. Buckle up for this one.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1971 in the basement of Stanford University. They've built a mock prison. And the participants, they're just normal, healthy, well-adjusted college guys. They literally flipped a coin to decide who would be a prisoner and who would be a guard. The plan was for it to run for 2 weeks. And this is key. These were all screened. These were good kids. And just look how fast everything went downhill. Day 1, it's all kind of awkward. They're just role-playing. By day 2, the prisoners stage a little rebellion. And the guards, they crush it. Not with fists, but with psychological cruelty, humiliation, sleep deprivation. By day 4, you've got prisoners having complete emotional breakdowns. And by day 6, just 6 days in, the abuse was so out of control they had to shut the whole thing down. And just listen to this from one of the guards. This guy wasn't some monster. He was a regular student who was genuinely shocked to discover this dark potential inside himself, a potential that was unlocked the second he put on the uniform. And get this, he said while he was doing it, he didn't feel guilty at all. The situation had made his cruel behavior feel normal. So, if the situation is the bad barrel, you gotta ask, who's making the barrels? And that brings us to our next point, the power of the system. These are the bigger forces, the architects of the situation, what Zimbardo calls the bad barrel makers. And believe me, this isn't just some dusty old academic study. Fast forward a few decades, and the world sees these horrific photos from the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. And for Zimbardo, it was like a nightmare coming true. He didn't see a few bad apple soldiers. He saw his experiment playing out for real, on a global stage. I mean, just look at the parallels here. It's chilling. In both cases, you have dehumanization. Prisoners became numbers at Stanford. They were hooded and leashed at Abu Ghraib. You have anonymity. Guards wearing reflective sunglasses so you can't see their eyes. Soldiers working an unsupervised night shift. And the most critical piece, sanctioned aggression. The superintendent in the experiment let it happen, and military intelligence in Iraq encouraged it. The exact same psychological recipe was at work. And this all boils down to what's called system power. It's the ideology, the policies, the authority from on high that basically gives you permission to act in ways you normally wouldn't. It's the voice that says, hey, what you're doing isn't wrong. It's a necessary procedure. It's for a greater good. It provides the justification that allows good people to do terrible things and still sleep at night.
I know, this has all been pretty bleak. But the story does not end there. And this brings us to the final and much more empowering part of this whole thing, the hero in all of us. See, here's the beautiful flip side to Zimbardo's whole argument. If a situation can turn a good person bad,
then it can also inspire an ordinary person to become a hero. We all have that hero in waiting inside of us. Heroism isn't some special trait you're born with. It's a choice. It's an action you take in a specific moment. So, how do we get ready for that moment? Well, Zimbardo lays out some steps. It starts with being humble, admitting we can make mistakes and that we're all vulnerable to this stuff. Then, it's about taking total responsibility. No blaming the group. No saying, I was just following orders. We also have to be vigilant about how things are framed. Is it collateral damage, or is it killing civilians? Because whoever controls the language controls the argument. And finally, it's about being willing to stand alone, to say no when the rest of the group is saying yes. So we end up right back where we started, with a question for you. What we've seen is that the situation is an incredibly powerful catalyst. It can bring out the worst in us, but it can also bring out the very best. The barrel might be bad, the system might be pushing you in a dark direction, but that final choice, that's still yours. The situation sets the stage, but you get to decide what role you're going to play.